Families are the main system of support when you have to face challenging aspects of life. Families, however, do not come in one shape or size. They are all vastly different. Growing up can be challenging when your family is incomplete. Broken is such an ugly term to use when talking about families that have missing pieces, because it makes the family seem dysfunctional, and that is not the case. Families can function even if all members of the family are not together anymore. On February 10th, 1995, my mom, my dad, my grandparents, and my older sister welcomed me into the world. I was an average-sized infant, and my family loved me dearly. The first few years of my life were great. We spent a lot of family time together. We had a cute little family, but around when I was 3 years old, my parents had a nasty divorce. For a short while after their divorce, my sister and I were able to continue our relationships with our dad and his family. Unfortunately, due to some terrible circumstances, these relationships were terminated abruptly. Being so young, my sister and I were unable to understand why we could not see our father. This ugly breakup of my family left me with no memories of my father or anyone on his side of the family. Sometimes I think I have memories of them, but I can't tell if they are just from home videos, pictures, or stories I have been told about my dad and his side of the family. While I did grow up with wonderful family members that supported me during all the hard phases of life, the divorce of my parents left an empty space in my life and a large question about my origins. Who was my father? Did he look the same? Did we share any commonalities, or was I more like my mother? Receiving cards and letters from my dad's mom and his sister only reinforced the questions that my sister and I had about our dad. When I was about 9 years old, my mother remarried. She thought that my stepdad would be able to fill the gap in our family. However, this was exactly the opposite. While he and I had a decent relationship, their alcoholism was a dividing factor in our family. When my sister and I would get home from school, my mom and stepdad would fix a quick dinner and leave for the bar, leaving us alone when we were only 9 and 11. I remember several nights calling the bar, begging and pleading for them to come home, only to be told that they would come after they finished their drinks. Those drinks must have been bottomless, because it would be midnight or later before they would come home. It almost would have been better if they did not come home, because they would instantly start fighting. My sister and I would lay awake in bed hearing the shouting. They would keep us up late with their fighting. Sometimes if we got out of bed, their fighting would be directed at us. My stepdad would yell horrible things at my sister and I. He never missed an opportunity to tell us that we were bad kids. He would also do the same to my mom. He would even hit her often. After listening to their fighting or getting yelled at all night, we would have to get up early the next day and go to school. During school hours, my sister and I pretended like our lives were normal. We never said a word to our teachers. Both my sister and I excelled in school because we learned at a very young age that education is a ticket out of most bad situations. Learning was an outlet for all of our frustrations that we had at home. My stepdad had completely ruined my self-image as a child. I felt as if I was not a good person in general. This is still something I sometimes struggle with. When having so many horrible things said to me on a daily basis, it completely ruined my social identity. This continued throughout most of my young adult life, but when I was 15 years old, my mom and my stepdad quit drinking and they split up. This seemed like the greatest thing at the time. Finally, after all of those years of having negative things said to my mom, my sister, and myself, we were free from the poisonous relationship. We had succeeded. After dealing with the trauma for so long, the question of my father had been pushed out of my head. On a hot summer day, after my freshman year, I was home alone. My sister and I had always kept the letters and cards we had received from my dad's side of the family. Often they would include addresses, emails, and phone numbers. I honestly am unaware of the motivation for my actions that day, but part of me believes that I was being pushed to do what I did for a reason. I excitedly dug through the box of letters, searching. I was searching for phone numbers. When I finally found the letter from my dad's mom that contained all of the various phone numbers to the people I had not seen or talked to since I was a little girl, I froze for a moment. Was I really about to do this? What if their phone numbers had changed? All rewards have a risk. That's what I kept telling myself when I opened one of the letters that had everyone's phone number listed. As I dialed my dad's number on my cell phone, I was shaking with nerves. I was worried about what I should say. I pressed send and waited for what seemed like an eternity. The call went to voicemail. For a moment I felt defeated. Maybe it was a mistake to have called him. I did not let this small setback change the course of my actions, however. I moved on to the next phone number. It so happened that it was my Uncle Mark's phone number. Surprisingly, he picked up. The first thing I said when he answered was, "Hi, it's Kourtney, Lonnie's daughter." I tried calling him, but he did not answer. My uncle immediately responded by saying, "Kourtney, let me call your dad. I'll call you back." He called my dad to let him know that the random number that called him was me. After we got off the phone, my dad called me and we talked for an hour. It was a great feeling to finally open this relationship that most children get the privilege of having. After several weeks of talking with him, My sister and I decided it was time that we would meet our father again. My dad planned a huge family reunion. We went to Montana and met my Uncle Mark, his wife, my dad, my stepmom, my stepsister, my two aunts and their children, and my grandma. Ever since then, I have had a great relationship with my dad's side of the family. Throughout this whole experience, I learned a lot about myself. Despite all the issues my family has had, I've grown up to be a well-rounded person. These events taught me that even though you're in a bad situation does not mean it will last forever. If you continue to push through, you can get through anything. This is relatable to the classroom because when students are struggling, I want to remind them to keep pushing, that anything is possible if they just keep trying. I also want to be supportive of my students. One thing I realized as an adult is that no teacher ever approached my sister and I about the situation with our parents and their alcoholism, even though it seems apparent to us that something was wrong. I want to be aware of my students and their family relations in order for me to be able to help my students. Now that I'm in college pursuing my degree, I have changed my situation. I want to let my students know that they can change the situation they are in through hard work.